All right, kids, it's Blackjack with 396 Guitars. We have the Epiphone Les Paul back on the bench today. This is the next installment in the fret leveling process. We're at the, we've already done the fret leveling. We've already done the crowning. We're now in the polishing phase, and I want to walk you through how I do that. And hopefully I can get in removing all the tape and setting the nut and restringing it and getting it ready to play again. Let's get to work. Remember, if you dig what I'm doing, like and subscribe. Now, I know the guitar doesn't look quite right here, but this is what we're doing. So refer to the last video, and that's when we actually did the fret leveling. And we finished that video with, just roughly sanding the frets to clean up, any marker left on them, and just quickly get them the polishing process started. Now, here's the crux of the polishing process, and this is how I do it, and it's by hand. So we have coarse, which is 1500 to 1800, medium 2400 to 3500, fine 4000 to 6000, and ultra fine 8000 to 12,000. So each one has two sides. I always start with the printed side first, like that, and then flip it over. So we start with the coarse one. So I've already done these right here. So I'm going to give you kind of a close-up of that. You can see right here, these we've actually started to polish. And it's not finished. This is just the next step. And then I have all of these left to do. So you see how dull that one is and how shiny these are already. Now, I'm only going to show you one or two because I literally have to go through 8 steps with these sanding pads on each fret. So you start with the coarse one on the printed side. By the way, you get these through StuMac. And again, it's one of those things it took me a long time the way I was taught, and then it took me a long time to, kind of hone in on my process. This is how I do it. There are a million different ways to do it. Start with the coarse. Now this is 1500 to 1800, and that's the coarse. So this is polishing. And you start on the edges. And be mindful to hit the fret ends as well. And yep, it's tedious. Very important to hit the fret ends as well, because that's going to save us a lot of time later on. I will get to that. Then you're very methodically working the crown all the way around the entire fret with first one side. And I'm wearing my googly eyes. I hope my head isn't in the way too bad. But I like to get right down on my work and see what I'm doing to make sure that, all of those fine striations are little by little disappearing. Is there another process? Yeah, there's, just get on the University of YouTube. Not to send you away from my channel, but you know what? Everybody has a process for doing this. Done with that one, move on to the next one, which is 2400 to 3600. And get right back on the same fret. Start with the printed side. Same thing. First the edges and the ends. Both sides. And then get after it. And yeah, you definitely want to push. Get some pressure on it. Let the actual sanding pad get on it and do some work. And each time you change from one side to the other, and then from one one pad to the next, you will start to see it, an actual transformation in that rough, nasty, scratched up fret to it starts to look polished. And pardon my head, get down there and look really close, and you will see the fruit of your labor. Can you skip? Only do it 4 times. No, I'm telling you, if you want really good result, don't skimp here. This is long, arduous, tedious work, but no plec machine can do this. Sorry, I'm going to disagree with that. Usually by the time I get to the one that says fine, it's acceptable. And all of 99% of the sanding striations are gone, but there's one last one, and it is 8,000 to 12,000. If you rub your fingertip across, you can't even tell that it's sandpaper. But it makes a difference. And if you get done with this process on this particular fret, and you're looking at it, and you see that there's still some striations that are catching your fingernail, or you can, really see them, to go back and do 8 more. But my experience has been, if you do it this way, what I just showed you, you're going to get done and you're going to have a perfectly cleaned up fret. And once we get all of these done, then we're going to actually go after it with some tarnish polish. And that's the end of this process, but I'm going to show you that. I'm going to pause here because clearly you can see I have about another 15 frets to do. And this is going to take me off camera about an hour to get through all of this. But I will be back and we will move on to the next step. Stand by. Okay, folks, I know it was only a second for you, but for me it was about an hour and a half. Last fret, of course I showed you when we started here. Now we're all the way down here. Just wanted to show you the conclusion of it. So I've got about 3 fret leveling jobs and polishing with this set, and they're just about done. They're worn through because, as you can see, you can only well imagine just how much effort goes into this. I wanted to illustrate it. Imagine doing this for a couple of hours. You'll have cramps in your shoulders, your wrists, your fingers. But this is the best result. If you're after really nice finished frets, this is the way to do it. Sorry, I'm old school. A little bit of elbow grease never hurt anyone. So just to reiterate, the coarse, the most aggressive one is 1500 to 1800. The next one is, it's getting hard to read them, 4000 to 5000. This one goes up to 8500, and then 8000 to 12,000. So even the coarse one is super, super ultra fine. But yeah, I wanted to illustrate that, you know, if you're sanding a piece of wood, you know, 320 grit, we're starting at, you know, 1500. We start at 1500 when we're trying to polish these frets and work our way up to 12,000. And you could go even farther than that, but I've found that this system works just fine. Once you get done, you know, I'll give you a close-up. You can see just how nice and shiny those frets are. And we're not even done yet. There's still another step to the process. I'm going to vacuum, so hit your mute buttons. Yeah, so next step, our handy dandy fret tool, fret protection tool. Even though we're still taped off, it's okay. This makes it easier to do this. I use yeah, that product, and this is going to take the tarnish off. And I will probably do this again when we get all the tape off and I'm finally get the nut set and I'm stringing it up. Before I string it up, I'm going to oil the board and I'm going to probably polish them one more time. But this process goes as follows. So regular white paper towel. Just fold it off, get yourself a nice little corner. Put a little dollop of that right there, not there, there. I think I may be running out. I probably got just enough to finish this. All right, fret tool. Got a little dollop of that stuff on there, and all you do is dab it on first, right? And I'm going to go down to probably the 7th fret. All we're doing is applying a little bit of it. And then go to town. Some of you have seen this, and I do this from time to time on, you know, regular setups and cleaning. I'll polish a guy's fret, but that's just the first step, getting the tarnish off. And use a clean piece of the towel every time you do that. And that's what you're looking, that's what you want to hear, that little squeaky. Yup. Lots of different products you can use. This is just what I use. Elbow grease. Work it. I'm actually breaking a sweat in here. I gotta turn up my air conditioner. All right. Yeah, they're beautiful. And you know, I've been checking my work all along, and it really came out nice. I mean, you can never get 100% of every little tiny scratch out, but trust me when I tell you, it's perfect. It is perfect. I'm going to pause while I finish this part up, and then we're going to take the tape off and probably put that back in, and maybe if we have enough time, I have to fabricate a shim to put in there. Refer to the first video. Somebody really buggered up that nut track there. Yeah, stand by. So this is what it looks like when you're done. You know, I've seen that. Many of you have seen that before. And you get polishing and getting all that tarnish comes off. And I am going to do, like I said, I'm going to do that process again. So I digress. Tape comes off. And be careful when you're doing this. You don't want to just rip it off. Something might come off with it. And we're going to clean up again real quickly. Just make sure there isn't any sand, paper, filings, metal, all that crap. You don't want that on the guitar. You don't want it on the fretboard. You'll end up with scratches that you didn't want. Nice and slow. And yeah, I'm going to show this because it gives you an idea of just how much time and effort is involved in this. You know, from the first video, the first installment, taping the sides, taping all the frets off, making sure that all of the board is covered. Because you saw what we went through, you know. There's a lot of aggressive process that happens when you're doing this. And you want to protect everything as much as you can. And there's now going to be quite a bit of cleanup involved. Yeah, I knew it. I was going to rip one of them. There it is. That's why you go slow. And the other reason I wanted to show this is because, yeah, it's kind of a reveal moment. And you get all of that effort and all that work in. Underneath all of this is a guitar somewhere. Yeah, fella. You can fast forward through this, guys. You can already tell the difference in the way the frets look and the way they feel. I wish I could put my Mr. Magoo eyes on everyone so you could get right down and look at each one. Because, boy, when you get done, it's a really satisfying feeling to look at the condition of the frets compared to before and after. All right, you come off of there. Oh, that's right where it was sitting on the neck stand. All that tape got stuck on it a little more aggressively. See how much fun it is? You want to be a guitar tech? Well, this is the shit you gotta go through. Oop, did I say shit? I meant to say poop. They'll probably shut me down for that. right? And then sides. This is where it always frays and doesn't come off in one piece. Just like that. Maybe if we start at this end. Which side? Over here? Yeah. I have had a rash of fret leveling jobs recently. It's not my favorite, I can tell you that. Well, there was a guitar under all that. I think I'm going to put that back in right now. Well, actually I was going to change that, so I think I'm going to hold off on that. Yeah. I'm hoping that in this video we can get the process. What do we got? Yeah, we got a few minutes. Let's talk about this. So, in the first installment of this process, when I was taking the nut out, which you have to do to get after it with the leveling beam, the nut channel right here, it almost looks like somebody got in there with some sort of rounded chisel and dug it out, and it's a mess. There was some chip out here of the finish on the headstock, and there was it was filled up with rubber cement. So at some juncture, some tech somewhere, I don't know, boogered up the channel and tried to fill it with rubber cement to bring it up to where the nut would set correctly. Well, no, that's a fail, I'm sorry to tell you. The only way to do this correctly now is I'm going to have to fabricate a shim to put under here. And it's going to take me a little bit of time. I have what I think from pre-measuring where we were when we started, before we even got into fret leveling, where our string action was at the first fret. And I am going to fabricate a hardwood shim to put in there. And I want it to fit right down in that cavity evenly as much as possible. And then we're going to put the nut on that. So I'm not going to show you the entire process. I'm going to show you the finished result. We're starting with that, right? Where we are. All right. We're starting with that little piece of hardwood shim. And I have to not only cut it to length this way, I have to cut it to width this way so that it fits down in there snugly and glues really nicely, and then the nut can sit on top of that. Not ideal. It is not ideal. I'm going to tell you from the get-go. Once we put this in there, though, that's it. The nut will be set and it'll be fine. So stand by while I get this little guy cut down to size, and then we'll glue it in. Okay, so I'm shifting gears in the middle of the job. We're going to end this episode today with what we've done so far. I was hoping to get to where we could set the nut in this episode, but I cleaned the channel out very nicely, and it took, a razor blade, utility knife, 1/4 inch sharp wood chisel, because you need that to get down in there. I can tell you that this nut channel it starts out wide over here and goes narrower that way. That I'm not too concerned about. You'll never notice it, because I'm not going to get into trying to match finish here. And There's quite a bit of buildup in the finish. But, so we have a success, but a fail. I know this nut that came with it is not a good nut. First of all, it's plastic. When you hear the tusk, I have two tusk nuts here. You can hear the difference. This one is, yeah, plastic. I want to put a better nut in there, but I do have to widen this channel even a little bit more over here, and it's going to take a little bit of doing. Unfortunately, we can't do that today. I know that the nut that came out of it it's been cut too short from the measurements that I took before we even started, this process. So instead of putting a shim, the short and long of it is, instead of putting a shim, which I don't like to do, I am going to start with a new bone nut, which I don't have in the shop. I thought I had a couple of good ones, but they're even shorter than this one to start with. Now, they're usually quite a bit taller. That will get me where I want to be as far as a starting point, and then I can methodically cut the nut slots. It's always something, and yeah, we don't want to half-ass the nut. If we did all this energy, put all this effort and time into fixing the frets. So this is pretty critical. That's where the rubber hits the road. Unfortunately, we're going to have to stop there. I hope you guys are catching all this. It's Blackjack with 396 Guitars. There's going to be one more installment. I wanted to finish it today, but sometimes it's not the way it goes. So we'll talk soon. Remember, if you dig what I'm doing, you know.